All right, today's episode, I'm joined by Johnny and Michael to discuss making friends as an adult. And this is one of the reasons that many of our clients join our coaching programs because we're struggling as adults to find and make new friends. And of course, when we think about our past, school, activities organized for us, there was a lot of space in our lives to be social, meet, and connect with new people. Recently, Cal Newport joined the show, and he was talking about this rise in pseudo productivity, where our work is now boundless. We are 24/7, 365 expected to be responding to Slack messages and email and pseudo productivity, busy work that keeps us always on the work front. That makes it difficult to actually find the space, the time in our lives to plan to be more social and, of course, create those friendships that are so meaningful. I know in the past, we've also talked to Dr. Robert Waldinger about the importance of a healthy social life and fulfilling relationships in your life create longevity, mental, physical, and emotional health. So it is important to our survival that we are continuing to build and strengthen relationships even as adults. So today we really want to talk about what are some trends that we're seeing? Why are some reasons that clients are joining our coaching program around strengthening their social connections, growing their social capital, and some strategies that you can implement after today's show to make making friends as an adult easier, more fun, more enjoyable, and less like a second job, a side hustle, or a full-time job. So as we jump in, I want to talk first about the loneliness epidemic. I know we've shared some stats in the past on the show about this, and there inevitably comes some people responding, I'm not feeling lonely, because we think about loneliness as maybe having no friends or having no social ties or connections. But in actuality, what we're talking about today in terms of loneliness is just growing distant and growing apart from people in your life, seeing meaningful people in your life less frequently, or maybe moving across the country and not being as connected as you were to past social ties can lead to this aching, nagging feeling of, I want more in my social life. I want to be more fulfilled. I want to feel more connected. I don't want to feel so distant from my friends who got married, had kids, moved away, or their career has taken over their life. And I know, Michael, in researching for this episode, you found some great stats around this feeling that we're all having around loneliness.
Yeah, there were actually two massive surveys released just at the end of last year, and one was done by Meta and Gallup. And they found that almost a quarter of adults worldwide reported being fairly lonely or very lonely. And so in total, that's more than 1 billion people. And this survey was massive. It was conducted in 142 countries. And what they found was that 24% of people 15 years or older reported feeling very lonely or fairly lonely when they were asked, how lonely do you feel? Now, 142 countries. So I thought to myself, yeah, that's not the Western world, right? That's not the US. That's not Europe. That's especially those countries. They rate even higher than 25%. They're more in the range of 30%. And the other survey that I found was done by the US Surgeon General. It's called Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And they found that especially young adults had the highest rate of loneliness. Those between 19 and 29 years old, those were those that responded most enthusiastically to being asked, hey, how lonely do you? Not most enthusiastically, they were the strongest with their answer when they said, hey, I actually really feel lonely. And for those that did not report loneliness or social isolation, 90% of them had 3 or more confidence. Now, half of Americans in 2021 reported having 3 or fewer close friends, people they can actually turn to when they want to do something, when they struggle. And in 1990, only a quarter of people would actually respond that they have only 3 or less close friends.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know where to begin because we've talked about this subject over the last 17 years. And when we first breached this subject, we talked about the technology at hand. And this is like 17 years ago. And we discussed that we are now being dealt curated, algorithmically chosen experiences that are exactly what we are looking for, and it never ends. So if I have the choice to leave my house, drive somewhere, go to somewhere where I don't know who's going to be there, how long I'm going to be there, if I'm going to enjoy myself, I have a ton of unknowns versus a curated, amazing experience that is for me and has been selected for me through the choices that I have made. And so that we said back then that this epidemic was only going to get worse. It has. We said then that the experiences that were curated for us were only going to get better, and they have. And the social media outlets and websites that people spend their time on, TikTok and stuff, all of these, Telegram, are they go on forever. The curated scroll has been designed so that you stay on these accounts and you keep consuming, and it hits your everything that you want. And what are they calling it? Dopamine fixes, right? And we're going to chase that. So I think for a lot of people, they have to understand that they are comfortable and they're not leaving the house because of these algorithms and how it is set up to curate the content that you're looking for. So now that you know that you're enjoying, or you're stuck in them, or you're lonely now because you have spent all of this time alone, well, there's a reason for that. So I think for a lot of people, the first thing that they have to admit to is, I'm comfortable, and but I'm lonely, and I'm lacking in connection, and friends and relationships are more important to me than another Friday night on TikTok. And if you don't make that choice, nothing is going to change. So you have to first admit that there's a problem.
In the last 17 years, we've now developed a term, parasocial relationship, where we are starting to develop relationships with our favorite creators that are one directional, meaning we consume their life, we feel connected to what they're showcasing for us. And this rise of parasocial relationships is how celebrities and artists market themselves to us to grow that connection with their fan base. But there's no real connection happening there. We know what's going on in their life, but they're not invested in our lives. They're not consuming what's happening for us. And as you said, it creates this empty caloric feeling of eating junk food, that I've consumed content that gives me dopamine, that allows me to feel connected. But at the end of the day, I've lost my confidence. I don't have those people that I can share my frustrations with, my goals, my challenges, my things in my life that I want to celebrate, that I want to connect with other people around.
Yes, those parasocial connections they're inadequate. They are what's the term? Junk calories, right? It serves its purpose to keep you occupied and distract you from your loneliness in the moment. It gives you just enough to give you a warm, fuzzy feeling that you made the right choice. But when that drug wears off, you're back to staring at the ceiling going, what's wrong with my life?
And some of our clients have seen it in other people. So they've lost friends and relationships to parasocial relationships, to video games, to people focusing more on their work, giving up their third place, as we've talked about in the past. That opportunity to socialize has dwindled in a lot of our lives as we've seen the rise in pseudo productivity. We've seen technology inject into our attention economy, stealing away our time and attention from investing in real quality relationships in our life. And it's frustrating when you look around and you don't have the social opportunities that you had, let's say in college or in high school, that were planned for you, that were set up, that you just had to show up, and naturally social connection happened. So once you've recognized that this is a area of focus for you, maybe a struggle, frustration, you're starting to feel the tinge of loneliness, recognizing that you're drifting away from people in your life, what do we do to start building relationships? And I know that's typically one of the first questions that clients will ask us when they join the program is they want to know, okay, well, what can I do about it? How can I start going out there and meeting new people and connecting with new people in my life? And we often ask, well, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? What are your passions? What are you engaging with outside of work and outside of family? Because that is typically where the best social options are going to lie. And unfortunately, a lot of us have allowed our hobbies and passions and pursuits to dwindle as well.
I think a lot of us have never recovered from cutting back when we were in the middle of and having to deal with COVID. Everyone had to pull back of the activities that they were doing, the outings that they were going to, and certainly they had to let go a lot of relationships that just weren't as functional or just able to continue those connections during COVID. And because of that, there's there's never been the great recovery after COVID of going back out being social. I mean, we certainly have seen businesses ask their employees to start coming back to the office. But again, there was a reason for that. Those businesses realized that they were struggling. They didn't have much cohesion in the office. It was difficult for some of these leaders to motivate their team members. And there's just not going to be the camaraderie that people have when they see and hang out and talk with each other on a daily basis. And that team morale goes a long way in being productive. Now, AJ, you're going to talk about the pseudo productivity that you had talked about with Cal Newport. But the one thing but I wanted to say before that is that the team morale, right? The synergy between team members that fire each other up, that a healthy competition between people, getting inspired when you see somebody that you care about put in extra work and want to match them and get fired up for a project. That's lost when everybody is working in different places. And in fact, I mean, I feel it just within our own company. Luckily, we're a small unit and we talk regularly. But when you don't have that, those personal and in-person interactions, there's a lot of momentum, energy, synergy, and excitement that you lose with that. Those large companies seen it, right? They asked everyone to come back. I think Elon Musk was one of the first people to like, listen, you're coming back to work. Pick up your stuff, get in your office, let's go.
Yeah, I think what was interesting in the conversation with Cal Newport around pseudo productivity is that this always on environment that's been created has led people to feel differently about remote work. Some enjoy it immensely because it allows them to actually have the space in their life to do deep work. And maybe they're introverted, so they don't have to deal with the interaction and the team morale and the collaboration that you mentioned there, Johnny. Some people really want to go back to the office and really crave that because they're extroverted and they found a lot of meaning and value in the relationships that they had at work. And yet we're trying to sort out this balance. But along with that, there's this never-ending nagging pressure of, I have to respond to everything immediately. I have to communicate on every platform that the company assigns to me. And I can't put my phone down for hobbies and passions and pursuits. So we see clients looking at us and they, oh, AJ, that'd be great, but I got to answer this Slack. I don't have time to engage with hobbies and passions right now.
AJ, I want to add to that as well. You mentioned that the extroverts were the ones yearning for that office, and working with our clients and researching and looking at all the stats, I have seen and read a lot about the introverts who, they don't want to talk with people. They don't want to have a lot of interactions, but they liked being in the office environment. Other people conjugating and walking around and hanging out lifted them up. They just weren't the kind of people that like wanted to feel obligated to go with everybody to have drinks after work or to make sure that everyone is going to lunch together. They like their quiet time, but they liked being in a vibrant office space.
Coming back to, so this one thing you said, AJ, has stuck with me, where clients come to us and they say, okay, I have my work and I have my stuff that I do at home, but I don't have like friends to hang out with. I don't have any hobbies that I'm doing. I don't have any passions. I don't have things that fire me up that I'm doing in my spare time. And then they have it backwards, because they come to us and they say, I know how to fix that. I just need a couple of friends, and then they will take me by the hand and they will drag me to all those fun events that they are doing. So my problem is, I don't have any friends, but if I bring them in, now my leisure time, my hobbies, my passions are taken care of, because they will entertain me. And of course, that does not work, because the last thing a person that you've just met wants to do is turn into your personal entertainer and tour guide.
Yeah, and I think what's challenging in a lot of ways is maybe those hobbies and passions and pursuit you enjoyed doing with friends, but those friends have lost interest in those hobbies or passions, or they've redirected their energy now to raising a family or to growing their business or to advancing their career. And sometimes there's this self-judgment of, well, why am I sticking with this hobby or passion if it's no longer important to my friends that I enjoyed it with? Why am I still in this trying to build this band, or why am I still trying to golf when everyone else now doesn't have any time for these activities? So there is also a level of self-judgment and self-criticism that we have to overcome around losing things that are important to us because the social pressure around us has said maybe that's not as meaningful. So step one in recognizing this phenomenon is to ask yourself, am I engaging in something that fulfills me, that gives me life, joy, and fun outside of work and outside of my family? Do I have that pursuit? Do I have something that I'm engaging with in a meaningful way in my leisure time? Or, as Johnny was sharing earlier, am I just a passive consumer of everyone else's content and everyone else's fun that's going on in their lives on this little device that's in my pocket? Once we recognize that that's really the first step to take to start to reinvigorate yourself, to become high value, as we talk about on the show, when you actually have activities that light you up, that you're passionate about, when you actually go out to socialize and meet new people, that draws and attracts the right people to you. So instead of being that beacon of, I need someone else for fulfillment, I need someone else to plan things for me, if I just find someone else, then I'll find my hobbies or passions, that actually works against you. It's a beacon for the wrong people in your life, the people who aren't doing exciting things, who might want to take from you, versus when you recognize what you're passionate about and you start sharing that in conversation, you start engaging in social activities around that passion, everything becomes a lot easier in terms of making new friends.
I guess just to add to that, everyone needs to think about, as you mentioned, AJ, what they're passionate about, and start to think about those passions in relationship to how you engage in them, right? Like, I can engage with music through my devices, and I do. I love listening to records. I love finding new bands. There's a lot of incredible ways where young, emerging, obscure artists are getting recognized on social media that I find utterly fascinating, and it's a lot of fun engaging in that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, to me, nothing is better than seeing that band that you discovered play live. And that experience, at least as of yet, has not been duplicated to the heights of actually going to see that band in real life. And because of that, that's a motivator that gets me off the couch from a curated night of discovering new bands or just blasting a record and zoning out to it, which I love to do. And I will opt for that if I do not find a great show that I would rather go see live. Because, well, one, it's the performance aspect. But again, we are talking about getting together with other people, enjoying that experience with other people. And as much as I love zoning out to my favorite bands, with other people next to me and sharing in that emotional space, is that much better. That's the human experience. The human experience is not enjoying that band by yourself. It's being in the room with and sharing that experience with everybody else, including the people performing on the stage. And AJ, you were mentioning about the run club, right? Well, again, a passion and an interest that cannot be duplicated sitting on the couch. And you may be able to get on a Peloton and get their headphones on and chat with somebody else who's also on their Peloton, but going riding together, going on a run together, going on a hike together, and sharing in that experience, that hike or run being difficult, hard, cold, right? It's in that struggle and completing that friendships are deepened.
And the science is clear on that, 100%. Proximity and opportunities for contact, they set the stage for friendship. Without proximity, without opportunities for contact, nothing will happen. They do not guarantee that people become friends, but they are absolutely necessary for this interaction to start. Other factors would be common interests, reciprocity, vulnerability, and so on. And to your point earlier about work, Johnny, there's scientists make a difference between closed systems and chosen relationships. So closed systems, that's school, that's work, that's the military. Those are people that are put in front of you and you hang out with them because of the system you're in. Now, friendships develop a lot faster, a lot more solidly when it's chosen relationships, because those happen primarily in leisure time. And so we have strong common interests at play here.
So looking at that, I know the next obvious question is, well, I don't know what my hobbies or passions should be. So we know that step one is engaging in hobbies and passions is critical to forming new relationships. It creates the proximity, it creates the shared interest, it allows you an opportunity to be more social. So what I ask to you, if you're listening and you're finding that you're in that situation, is one, are there any hobbies and passions that you put down due to work or due to moving or changes in your life that used to light you up that you haven't touched in a while? Maybe that's an opportunity there to explore those passions and hobbies in a social environment. If not, maybe it's worth investing some time in self-discovery over the next month or two of checking out a bowling league, an axe throwing league, going to a book club, joining a run club, checking out a golf league, doing something that you haven't done before, but you thought, man, that'd be really fun to check that out. Or maybe you thought about doing that as a kid, but it got pushed to the wayside with other priorities in your life. So create the space in your life to engage in hobbies and passions, or to find hobbies and passions. Now, this is one thing that I want to point out that I think a lot of our top performers and go-getters who listen to this podcast fall into, which is, awesome, I'm going to engage in my hobbies and passions for the next 2 weeks straight. And inevitably, life gets in the way. We're faced with challenges. We get a work deadline that we weren't expecting. We have to go out of town to pitch something to a new investor. And all of a sudden, we've lost that momentum that we had around passions and hobbies. So start small and start with an amount of engagement that you can maintain over the next quarter. Maybe it's one night a week for the next 3 months. Maybe it's 2 weekend activities for the next 3 months that you can commit to, that you can look at your calendar and say, I'm going to make the space and effort in my life for, instead of trying to do it each and every day. Recognizing that you haven't done it in the past is a recipe for disaster, and a recipe to invite that inner critic in to say you're doing it wrong, that self-doubt of maybe I shouldn't be doing this, to go back to your comfort zone, which is that device, as we talked about earlier. So recognizing that this is a struggle, recognizing that this is an area of weakness for you, once you commit to exploring and creating opportunities in your life around these passions and hobbies, you open up proximity to new people. You open up shared experiences and interests with these new people that you're socializing with. And what's really important is to create propinquity, which is consistency. So when you start showing up to that weekly run club every single Wednesday evening in Venice, over time, people are just naturally going to see you as a familiar, friendly face who has a shared interest. And that creates the space and the opportunity through propinquity for these social connections and ties to start to happen. So you can't do that if you do it sporadically and you just think of it on a random Wednesday night and then you forget about it for 2 months and you try to show back up again. So that's the importance of recognizing this is how much time and space I have reasonably to dedicate over the next quarter. And this is how I'm going to consistently show up in that time and space that I've defined for myself over the next quarter to create the propinquity, the familiarity that breeds these social connections that we're looking for. Now, we need a plan. So we've created time and space in our life to engage in passions and hobbies. And ideally, we're meeting new people. But what is your plan for when you do meet someone and you have a great conversation? You have a great interaction. You recognize that you have some more things in common. And maybe this is a potential for an acquaintance or a friend. And as Michael shared, we need to spend more time with someone in order to really build friendship. Well, what is your plan then to spend more time with people? And I think this is an area of weakness for a lot of us, that we put too much pressure and emphasis on the other person to come up with the plan, the other person to invite us into their social life, the other person to involve us in what's going on in their life. And we don't put enough effort and energy into, well, what can I invite them to next? What do I have going on in my life that I can bring them into the fold instead of waiting for them to invite me into their life?
AJ, you bring up a good point, and I want to shine a light on that a little bit, which is we're lazy by nature, right? We are designed to conserve energy. So the easy thing would be if a different group invited us in, and now we have new friends and they accept us and they're awesome. Wouldn't that be great? And so that's what a lot of people end up doing when they realize, you know what, I'm lonely. I need to make some friends. I need to grow my social circle. I need to have some personal interactions with folks. So I'm going to go out there, and then they get out there and they've made the first step. They took the very first leap, putting themselves out there. But their mind is, where are people who are going to accept me? So that's what they start to look for. And that's a difficult thing because you're asking other people to make an exception, to let you in, and then not only to bring you in, then to give you attention, approval, and acceptance. You're putting on everything on the other people. Now, if you are serious about this, a better way of going about this is to then begin to look and build your own social circle. And it may seem like that's a daunting task, but we are here to help you. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for the last 17 years, is to give you strategies, frameworks, and tools to make this easy. So that first step is then connecting with other people, going to events where you're going to connect through propinquity of closeness to passions, closeness in locale, logistics to other people to begin that connection. And if you have a mission, right, now you have a plan. And that mission, when people earn to hear what you're working on, right, you get to tell them of your plan and what it is that you're looking to achieve. And this automatically puts people trying to think how they can help you. And all of a sudden, they want to be part of your world and what you have going on, because guess what? You've done the work. They didn't. You sat down and figured out what it is that you wanted to do and what did you want to accomplish. And now you're sharing it and others are coming in. And so why this works so well is now that you're walking around, chatting with people, talking about what you have going on, this has the effect of you being intriguing to other people. And because you're now intriguing to other people with stuff going on, they're going to be curious. You have a reason. They have a reason now to bring you in. You've made yourself intriguing, attractive, somebody that they want to get to know, because who is this person who's moving on their own personal mission? So now you have opportunity to meet all of the other people and be brought into groups rather than chasing and hoping certain groups let you in, because we've been doing this for quite some time. And I'm just going to ask everyone who's listening to this, what happens to things you chase? And there's your answer. And that's why we flipped the script.
And having that plan doesn't mean that you have the next 6 months book solid, but it's what is that next thing if I have a great interaction with someone that I can invite them to? Maybe it's lunch after run club. Maybe it's going to see a movie on the weekend. Maybe it's running to the farmer's market on Sunday morning because you do that every single Sunday. But we need that next logical step to create the space and time spent together doing activities that you would enjoy doing on your own, but would even be more fulfilling with someone else joining you. Because without that plan, we're using hope as our strategy, hoping that the other person has time and space available in their calendar, hoping that the other person has things going on that they can invite us to, hoping that the other person isn't too busy so that they want to include us in what's going on in their life. And that hope is often not rewarded in these situations because we default to what we're comfortable with. And what we're comfortable with is what we've been getting in the past. So if you're trying to be active and you're trying to grow friendships as adults, you have to do the groundwork. You have to put in the plan of action. You have to have things going on in your life that you can logically and quickly invite people into to join you. And this creates what I call momentum. So if you have a great interaction with someone, that is the start of momentum. My dad used to say, out of sight, out of mind. If we're trying to make plans 3 weeks from now, 2 months from now, next quarter, the odds of that single conversation or acquaintance becoming a friend diminish rapidly. But if you have time available in your calendar each and every week dedicated to you being social, having things planned, reservations made, ideas, concerts you want to go to, tickets purchased, things going on, then you, by inviting other people to join you, create momentum that leads to quality time spent together that naturally creates friendships. And there's nothing more frustrating to me when I have a great interaction with someone and I'm excited to potentially form a connection with them, and they say, well, I'll see you next quarter, or I can't do that. I'm out of town. I have things going on. I'm no longer available. Because I know that the odds of us then reconnecting later and picking up where we left off and building and strengthening that connection go to near zero. And we can't wait for other people to make the plan for us. So part of engaging and creating friendships as adults means we got to take the bull by the horns. We have to have a plan and we have to execute on inviting people. And it also requires a level of patience, recognizing that everyone is busy. They have things going on. We might not be a priority in their life as much as we would like new friends in our life. So I follow what I call the baseball rule. I give everyone in my life 3 strikes. 3 opportunities to decline an invitation from me to hang out. And if 3 attempts by myself fail, then I go, hey, they're not ready at this point in their life for me as a new friend. They're not interested in a deeper connection with me at this time. I never write them off completely, but I always give myself 3 opportunities with everyone I'm meeting to create the momentum and the opportunity and space in my life to become friends with them. And I think if you're too impatient with this, recognizing how hard it is to create friendships, you're going to find yourself quite frustrated with everyone being unavailable, inaccessible, and very quickly find yourself giving up and going back to that device in your pocket that gives you more of a dopamine hit than being rejected. So having a plan, building momentum with the plan, and being patient really, in my mind, is step 2. Once we've recognized that we have hobbies and passions now that we're pursuing and engaging and socializing that has created the space and opportunity to meet new people, we need to have a plan to execute in order to bring these people into our life. We have to do some legwork with some patience on our end, recognizing that everyone is busy.
AJ, there's something that we discussed last night on our X-Factor call, which was one of our guys has been putting in some extra work at work in order to connect with some of his coworkers and just form a little bit better of relationships, uh, just in order to lift up the mood and the morale of the office. He wanted more energy and excitement to be there and just wanted to be closer to everybody. And one of the things that we have discussed is that if you listen to this show and you implement these concepts in your life, you're already at the top 10% of super communicators, right? You're actively thinking about things that everyone else just takes for granted, right? And we're dissecting these so that we have an understanding of how they work, we understand how to use them, and we know the cues to look for to know that we're using these concepts and tools effectively. And he was one of our members mentioned yesterday that there had been a few people at work who have finally come around to some outings for lunch, saying hello, being more personable at work. And he was excited that the extra effort that he put in had paid off. Now, AJ, you mentioned about your 3 strikes, and I think that is a great rule. That's definitely something similar that I use for myself. But I also understand that I know this stuff. And everyone it runs the gamut of how easily they get comfortable sharing emotional space with people, building friendships. And now, if we're somebody who's listening to the show and we're actively going out there and implementing this stuff to broaden our social circle, we can't expect that everyone else is just sitting around waiting for us to do that so they can jump in. You open the doors, you show them that everything is great and that you were here for them, and they will come when they are ready. So even if they don't accept after that third invitation, that's okay. Everyone takes a little bit more. Everyone takes a different amount of time to get comfortable. So, but when they do come, when they start asking questions, that's for you, not to be vindictive of, hey, I asked you last week, forget about it now. It's you've laid the groundwork. They've slowly been able to pick up the seeds that you've been dropping, and now they're at the door. Welcome them in, right? That's capitalizing on the work and your efforts.
Exactly. Being patiently proactive and having a plan and recognizing that people are busy and we're all facing these challenges is an important part of step 2. The third thing I want to talk about is recognizing friction. And I think this is another area where a lot of us have blind spots or aren't recognizing what it means to be friends with us. So I live in Los Angeles. I've talked a lot about it on the show, and I'm willing to drive closer to someone to engage in friendship activities at the start, because I recognize that for a lot of people, leaving their neighborhood, finding valet, figuring out parking, dealing with traffic is friction in their life that they're not willing to engage in to create new friendships at this time. So I have to recognize the friction, and I have to mitigate the friction as a high-value individual who wants to invest in relationships in order for things to get off the ground. Now, that might mean driving to the other side of the 405 to engage in Run Club on Wednesday nights. That might mean sacrificing a little bit of time in traffic to get closer to someone. That could mean offering to drive them to the airport, going to hang out with them and their kids on the first engagement instead of just demanding their one-on-one time with them. That might mean being a little uncomfortable at first to mitigate the friction to creating friendship in my life, recognizing that if I allow that friction to stay there, the odds of friendship happening dwindle quite quickly. And I think a lot of us, when we get excited about step 2, which is making plans and being proactive, we try to create opportunities that actually cause friction for the other person, cause too much of a commitment. And that friction might even be time. So imagine saying to someone, hey, let's go to the farmer's market. Or, hey, let's spend an hour at the farmer's market. What do you think is more likely to happen if you time box something, letting people know that you're only expecting an hour of their time? Let's have a quick lunch. Let's have an early dinner, right? Just these qualifiers mitigate the friction that people have in their lives around creating friendship. If they have children, well, the thought of going out to dinner, going to the rock show, and then staying out for drinks all night, and potentially the hangover in the morning, the loss of productivity, getting a babysitter, going across town, it sounds fun to you, but that's a lot of friction on the other person who might not have the ability or time or wherewithal to find the babysitter to be willing to go out for drinks all night long. So when we start to recognize that there is friction, we want to mitigate the friction and in a high value way, be helpful and supportive of what their goals and values and drive is versus dictating and putting our own goals and values and drive on the other person with our plans. And this friction comes up in various ways, but I just wanted to point out and recognize that the friction is there. And if we can be proactive in mitigating the friction, it actually makes developing friendships a lot easier. And it doesn't have to be self-sacrificial. You don't have to jump on the grenade in terms of friction and offer to spend 2 hours in traffic. But it is recognizing that maybe we should meet for dinner in the middle, or maybe I'll even stretch myself and go a little bit closer to you because that's how important it is for me to build new friendships versus demanding that people come to us, demanding that people don't even think about the friction in their life and accommodate our desire for friendship. So I wanted to tee up the social sales funnel as the last step and why it's so effective in mitigating the friction and creating the space and opportunity for people. But I just wanted to give you guys each a moment if there was anything else you wanted to share before we get to that last piece and wrap it up.
So AJ, there's one thing that I want to point out because as I'm putting myself into the head of a listener and I'm picturing, okay, I've made a new friend, I met a new person, I know this 3 strikes rule, I have this like awesome farmers market, I have my run club, this is all clear. But AJ, now I'm meeting 3 people a week, 4 people a week, and how do I like spread them out now? Do I all drag them to the farmers market? Do I all bring them to the run club? Do I switch between them each week? How does that strategy work in that regard?
This is actually my favorite step in the whole process of building friends, and it's something that we've taught all of our clients over the last 17 years, and I think is the most effective strategy in a lot of our lives around the busyness and chasing people and friction, as I talked about. We don't create enough opportunity to maximize time spent together. And what our social sales funnel does is it actually creates that opportunity to leverage a lot of what we discussed earlier in a manner that creates connections, gets people excited to join your life, and brings a lot of people together instead of you becoming someone's personal secretary and trying to organize schedule on a person-by-person basis. And what this essentially is a funnel. So start at the top, as we talked about, engaging in your hobbies and passions, starting to invite more people into your life, get excited about communicating and connecting with new potential leads for your social sales funnel. Now, step 2 of any great marketing funnel is a qualifying event. It's getting someone to opt in and say, yes, I want this. Yes, I'm interested in this. Yes, this would be helpful to me. So in our social sales funnel model, what I want you to think about is how can you host a monthly meetup or gathering? And it doesn't have to be a party. It doesn't have to be catered. It doesn't have to be a major expense on your bottom line. But what can you do to host people together, to get people together? Maybe it's beach volleyball. Maybe it's a Thursday morning hike. Maybe it's a poker night. Maybe it's just to watch the NFL draft because you're a huge sports fan. But how can you invite all of these great people you're meeting to one event that you're excited about hosting, that you're the linchpin, the reason everyone is there? And then how can you do that on an ongoing basis once a month over the next 12 months so that you always just have an opportunity and a plan of, I had a great conversation. Hey, you should come join me at my pool party. You should come to beach volleyball next week. I'm having a bunch of friends. Join me. Now, in practicing this, and certainly with clients who move to completely new towns, not knowing anyone, The one frustration we hear is, okay, AJ, but what if I invite a bunch of people and no one shows up? And I bought all these streamers and I grabbed a 24-pack of beer and I'm sitting on the beach by myself. And what's actually interesting about this is that 90% of the time we've found with clients that they actually have people show up. When you say you're hosting a bunch of people and you allow people an opportunity to join your life, they're pretty excited about that. It's something that fills their social calendar. It's something that they don't have to plan or think about. It's something that they can get excited about. It's something that they may be yearning to participate in. And by using the power of the invite and saying, hey, and bring a friend, bring someone you're already familiar with, you're already comfortable with, you actually exponentially grow their social capital, because now they can go to a friend and say, hey, I got this beach volleyball hangout. You should come join me. And they're more likely to show up. As Johnny said earlier, one of the barriers or one of the moments of friction we might feel is, well, I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know where this is. And I don't really know AJ that well. So how is this going to go for me? Well, you actually lower that fear. You mitigate that friction by saying, hey, bring a friend. Well, now they know at least one other person that's going to be there. So they have a bit of that social security blanket, and they're excited that they get to invite people in their life to do cool and fun and awesome things. So what that power of an invite also does is it leverages you saying to this person, I like you. I like you enough to invite you to something that I planned, something that I'm hosting with other people. And what I love doing, and this is a tip that we got from one of our ex-clients, Nick, is time boxing that event and saying, oh, it's a 2-hour thing. It's a 2-hour hang. It's a 2-hour beach volleyball. It's a 2-hour cocktail party. It's a 2-hour dinner. So that they know that, okay, if I say yes to hanging out with AJ, if I say yes to going to this event, it's only a couple hours of my time. It's worth it for me. So by time boxing it and allowing them to invite other people, you lower the friction, as I talked about earlier. And if you do it consistently, you're throwing out the invite, having that plan, you can exponentially grow your social connections by meeting new people, meeting friends of friends, by allowing people to come into your life and enjoy what you're excited about, the things that you are actually interested in. And that's the qualification step in our social sales funnel that allows you now to start building relationships with people that fit your passions and interests, that have things in common, that you've seen before because you've been going to things regularly. And when you invite people, it leads to reciprocity. Even if they can't attend, they may say, hey, you know what? I'm going to the Lakers game this Saturday. I have an extra ticket if you're interested. Because you took the time to invite them into your life, they might feel obligated then to say, hey, let me invite AJ into my life. He's a cool guy. He's got things going on. I want AJ participating in things that I have going on in my life. And that's how we really leverage bringing lots of people together and do it in a way that we can fit in our busy schedule on a monthly basis that allows us to have a plan, lower the friction, engage in passions, as I talked about, and exponentially grow our social connections to create the time and space necessary to start to form real relationships and friendships in adulthood.
Landed.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys.